Make the woman jealous and she'll give it to you nicely when you get home. Means a glass of milk, disprin, that. I mean, you have a dirty mind. We come from Delhi, we are pure. So you get onto Bergen, and then there's this beautiful sail. So the one place, I mean, the many places that you visit, you obviously go through the fjords, which are just amazing architecturally. So we went through the fjords. I was the only Indian on the ship. There were about 118 people, of which 78 were Americans who were running away from Obama. There were about 30 people who were running away from Queen Elizabeth. And then there was the only Indian who was running away from God knows what. So we started sailing. Now the drill with the Arctic is very interesting. As most of you know, there is no night. It's daytime all through. Polar bears don't give you an appointment. They don't say, okay, come and see me at 10:20 tomorrow morning. So whenever you spot a polar bear, you've got to get into a Zodiac, and it has nothing to do with underwear. It's a little dinghy, which you get into in the middle of the Arctic with ice, and you're actually in temperatures which are minus 48 and winds of about 170 miles per hour. So if you're not well attired, you can have two things. One is you can immediately die, or you can die painfully. But immediate death is the more preferred option in those climes. So you get into the Zodiacs. Now the rule in the Arctic is, and especially at the North Pole, where you will see sundry flags of countries that you and I can't identify. Remember, countries send people to the Arctic only when they want to get rid of them. No normal person goes to the Arctic. I mean, proof before you. So the rule is, you only go there if you're willing to suffer the extremities of climate. So we arrived at the North Pole, literally at the North Pole, and there you're given two warnings. Number one, don't do stuff that you can't handle. Okay, much like marriage. Number two, do not get close to a polar bear. A polar bear, no, it's serious. The rules in the Arctic are the polar bear must be at a distance of 100 meters from you. You can't get within 100 meters of the polar bear, because unlike what we have in our imagery, polar bears are very agile and very quick-footed. So, you know, this whole thing, oh, because he's large, he's slow. Not true. Large people can be pretty quick. You can try me after this whole shenanigan is over. So we went and saw the polar bears. But what was very interesting for me, because I've been a bird watcher, and I don't mean it in the nasty sense, you saw a lot of birds in the Arctic, which is quite strange. You also saw walruses, you also saw seals. So I went and saw many polar bears. Obviously, I'm not going to bullshit that, oh, you know, I patted them and got selfies done and all that shit. But as I told you, nothing works, except your limbs, if you can keep them intact. I then took the most interesting challenge up from the ship's captain. It was, on that particular day, it was minus 62 degrees Celsius. It was about 225 miles per hour of wind. And they tell you, do you have the courage to take a dip in the ocean? So obviously you can't go in your suit or whatever shiny stuff you're wearing. Very nice. Zara? 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 Nice. Yeah, I mean, considering how much I have to buy for all these women and get nothing in return, Zara is just an incident. So anyway, I took that dip, and I have to tell you, it was the most life-altering dip of my life, because it just energizes you, and you can't be in the water for more than about 12 or 14 seconds. And as soon as you get out, you're immediately put into quarantine where they check all your, all your body conditions, heart, blah, 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 and other stuff, which you know how it is. Thankfully, it was all working. Then we went to, so one of the other things we did every day was something called glacial climbing. So you climb about 3,000 feet of glaciers every day. Now the trick is, when you climb, you're never in a rush. There's no competitive advantage in, trying to outdo the other guy. So you're not waiting for a Mother Dairy queue, move up in front, or an Indigo one or some such low-cost carrier. You've got to make sure that you go at the pace that you've determined. Because the air is so thin, the oxygen is so meager, you can actually have a lung collapse. So there is a discipline to these kind of travels, is something that I took away during my trip. And I still remember the last bit of the voyage was when we did this enormous amount of glacial climbing, where one day we spotted a reindeer, and the reindeer is inadequate to bloody hold or even ride Santa Claus. So that's another piece of bullshit that you could park away. They're like very, very thin, almost like dealt with a body blow. So they're not interesting reindeers, but yes, they've got their horns intact. Then we went back to a place called Longyearbyen. It's Longyearbyen, which is the world's farthest airfield. Now, this is the airfield that is normally kept operational for emergency flights, in order to fly people off. But remember, if you're on a ship in the Arctic and, God forbid something happens to you, you will die there. Because there are no choppers. Remember, choppers fly when the air is not thin, which is why you won't see choppers above glaciers. But Longyearbyen is the closest airport within the Arctic region. And we then took off from Longyearbyen in private planes because they can't land big jets, and flew back to Oslo from where this journey ended. So to sum up, I believe that travel is about excitement. Travel is not about Selfridges and Marks and Spencer or even Zara. Sorry. Travel is about experiencing the unexperienced, unlike marriage. Travel is also about meeting interesting people. So I met some really bright people on the ship, except they were about 80 years old, waiting to die, but they didn't die on the cruise, thank God, so we didn't have any interruptions. And travel is about taking on challenges that test not just the body, because the body can be tested in many ways, in your gym, for instance. But I think the ultimate challenge of travel is when it tests your mind. When the mind is willing to challenge the body and challenge the climate and challenge the environs and challenge the geographical constraints of what these kind of places unfold. So in many ways, I would urge each one of you to try the Arctic, go to the North Pole. It'll be easier to going to the North Pole than going to fucking MG Road in deep traffic. And you won't even meet louts on the way. You'll meet happy polar bears, laid back walruses, and deep diving seals. So that's it.